My grandparents, they used to buy wine and then they store it. If you live in Paris now, you have no cellar. So my friends, when I go to their place, they don't take wine from their cellar. They go to the wine shop the day before, they buy a bottle, and then they open it. They want to be nice with me. They buy a bottle of Gruaud-Larose. We go for dinner.
Because you never drink Gruaud-Larose, right? So
it's too young. Should wait for another. So yeah, but that was at the wine shop. And that's the thing. In that case, the chateau will have to store the wine and then release it when it's ready to drink.
Welcome to Uncorking What's Next. I'm your host, Jeff Zachariah. Today, my guest was Nicolas Sinoquet, the CEO of Gruaud-Larose. Gruaud-Larose, nearly 300 years old, almost 80 hectares or about 200 acres, in a single unbroken plot in Saint-Julien, one of the most important addresses in all of Bordeaux. I ran Zacky's for 40 years, and Bordeaux was a very important part of everything we did. And Gruaud-Larose, for a long stretch, was what I called a sleeper second growth, a chateau who didn't fully live up to the reputation and the strength of its terroir. That is no longer the case. Nicolas has helped lead Gruaud-Larose's remarkable resurgency. We talked about what he found when he first arrived, what it takes to unlock the potential of a great estate without losing its soul, why Bordeaux's future depends on making it less intimidating, and why no one truly owns a great chateau. They merely care for it until they pass it on. This is Uncorking What's Next. Let's get into it. This podcast is sponsored by the Durand Corkscrew. If you enjoy mature wine as much as I do, you know how challenging older corks can be. Even with experience, they don't always cooperate. I still remember the first time I saw a Durand in use back in 2012. I was gobsmacked. It solved a problem I and every serious wine drinker has faced. It is as close to foolproof as I've ever found for opening bottles of wine with older corks, and now I keep 3 of them on hand. Here at Uncorking What's Next, we're giving a Durand away. Just share with me the story of what made you fall in love with wine. You can share it by email or Instagram. Over the summer, we'll be picking the best story to share on the podcast, and that person will win a Durand. And if you'd rather not wait, you can order the Durand directly at www.thedurand.com. Nicolas, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Before we get into Gruaud-Larose, I'd like to start where we always start, which is you as a person, not as a CEO. So going way back in time, did both your parents work outside the home?
They will both work outside, accounts management and construction stuff. So they were not on the wine business.
They were not in the wine business.
No.
And was there wine at your table when you were growing up?
Sure, there was wine and cider because I'm coming from Normandy, the north.
And in university, what did you study in university?
I studied agronomy in Bordeaux, winemaking, and then I went to a business school in Paris to study marketing and stuff like that.
So I guess by the time you were in university, wine was something of interest to you.
Sure. It was a big, it was an interest for the product and also for the commercial and marketing side of it.
And what drove you for this interest in wine, if neither of your parents? Because often I hear about, family legacies where there's so much history around wine. What drove you at an early age to such an interest?
I was interested in agronomy, and I'm coming from an artistic family. My mother is a painter. Also, I had some uncles and my grandfather as well. And I thought at that time that it was a good mix between, bit of artistic stuff or handcrafted thing and agronomy.
I know Jean Merlaut is the owner of Gruaud-Larose. And how did you find your way to Gruaud-Larose?
In an easy way, I married one of Jean Merlaut, a niece.
One of his nieces?
Yes.
Well, so that can be easy or not. I assume it wasn't intentional along those lines. But anyway, that was the way. And so then did you say to Jean, you're interested? Did he come to you? How did that happen?
No. Before coming, I joined Gruaud-Larose 2012, but I knew him for a longer time because he was at that, about 10 years before, he was the mayor of a small village, and he married Stephanie, my wife, and myself, being the mayor. And at that time, I was in the wine business, but I was in charge of a much bigger group. first price and the Languedoc wines. And when I left that company, I wanted to buy, and I bought a distillery doing Armagnac. And I called Jean to say, I will need some advice for that new chapter of my life. And he said, maybe we can build something together. You can also work with me and I can help you developing your business. We can do both. And that's how it started.
So was it a surprise was when he asked you?
Yes, it was. But it didn't took me long for thinking about it. Took me about 3 seconds. And I said, of course. I mean, when you are a wine lover or in the wine business, being the managing director or whatever you're doing, having the opportunity of working for Gruaud-Larose, I mean, it's a great chance.
Yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity. So
It is.
yeah. So if I can just set the stage for listeners who don't know about Gruaud-Larose, and everybody should, Gruaud-Larose is a nearly 300-year-old chateau. It's 82 hectares, which is about 200 acres. And what's really unique about Gruaud-Larose is it's just one block. It's mainly just one block, which is extraordinary in the Médoc. And when the Merlot acquired the estate in 97, the Merlot family, and then you stepped in, what did you find at Gruaud-Larose? What was your honest assessment in those early days?
I found like a small village. People working there, they've been working there for 1, 2, 3 generations. And it's not like, sometimes, I found family and stuff. No, it was not like a family, but more like a cousin thing, everybody living in the same village, and everybody was really proud and happy to work at Gruaud-Larose. That's what surprised me the most.
So interesting. Were there any concerns? Were there things that you felt needed to be improved?
You've got always things to be improved. Jean bought the estate about 15 years before I joined, and most of the thing has been engaged or started. It takes about 30 years to change a vineyard. He did a lot of things already, and I'm benefiting right now from his work. I think most of the things have been started, the rejuvenation and stuff like that, and it just needed to let people know what we are doing, and that's what my job was.
Yeah. So you feel your job was that he had started a lot of the hard work, and your job was communicating it and sharing that out to the world.
Yes, and then continuing the work specifically onto the vineyard. That's the main thing. You need to get the vineyard right, and then everything goes along. But the vineyard is the most important thing.
Yeah. So I've just to set the stage. I've been in the wine business for 40 years. Bordeaux was a big part of our business, and Gruaud-Larose for a long time was really kind of, I'll call it a sleeper second growth. And I don't feel that way anymore. But is there a recent vintage that you say, well, now that you look at as a benchmark to show how much improvement you've seen in Gruaud-Larose over the last 15 or so years?
Honestly, the last one, 25.
25, yes.
25, that's really, and I told that to people who came for the Primeur week, we made the wine that I wanted to do. Honestly, in terms of balance, in terms of power, structures, and everything. That 22 I was really proud of 22, but I think 25 is even better.
I look forward to trying the 25. I've not tried that yet. I want to pick up on something that you've said publicly that I've heard so often in the show, that you consider yourself here for just a short period of time, and that no one truly owns the estate, that you're lending it to the next generation. I heard a similar belief from Ormery Ram from Lafleur in my very first episode, Laura Quintana from Quintana Vineyards in Argentina, Scott Becker from Realm. I remember Ormery talking about being the current interpreter of the vineyards and a steward for something that's going to be there long after he's gone. You seem to have that same instinct, and I'm curious where it came from you, where that belief came from.
When I arrived, I was coming from a wine company who were doing a wine with a very short lifetime, like 2 or 3 years. You do white wine, rosé, and even the red wine, because it was from the Languedoc and cheap wine, so you have to drink them in 2 years. I remember I had that lunch with Jean, and first I checked the stock, and we had at that time quite a lot of 89. And I was a bit, wow, we need to do something with the 89. And we had like, I don't know, maybe 15,000 bottles in stock. And I told Jean we should address that issue because it's a lot of stock. The wine is old, and he said, "Don't worry, we've got another 50 years to sell them." I said, "Wow, well." And then the following week we had lunch together, and he brought, but it was a hidden bottle, and I found it very fresh. I said it's a very good wine, and then I saw him laughing, and I said, "Yeah, that's 89." And he was right. So I realized that our wine can last for a very long time, and people have been doing great wine. You know, I was saying, okay, my best vintage is 25. I like 22, but then I would love 10. I didn't make it, and 89 is one of my favorite. I didn't make it as well. And then when you've got all those small pieces all together, you realize that you're going to do wine for 30 years. But you're drinking wine for 150 years before you're kind of obliged to think that you're just a small piece of it. That's very natural when you're there.
Right. It puts, when you're looking from Jean's perspective, and he says this wine will last for 50 years, and you taste it so young and fresh, it does. It puts a very different perspective on things. And your position you're looking at a 30-year horizon, but maybe you have to look at a 50 or 100-year horizon as well. That can be equally as important. Bordeaux is very proud of their traditions, and Bordeaux has many traditions in selling through courtiers and negociants, selling always at the same time of year, and many, many others. How do you manage that difference, the tension between the traditions of Bordeaux and the responsibility as a steward of a property to maintain it and move it forward?
I mean, it's quite easy. Every year you've got new people working for you. I mean, you've got people that have been working there for a very long time, but you bring some trainee, you bring some young people, you go out, and then step by step, you realize that the people that are with you, they got a different perspective, they think differently. And if you're not too lazy, then you start to change the way you think. And I think it's a very easy process.
And that's a great attitude, because for some people that can be very hard. And I love that. I find young people always are bringing a fresh perspective to things. One of my goals in life with my wife is to have friends in every decade. So to have friends at 20 to 30, because it just brings very different perspective to things. So I like that.
I'm lucky I've got kids that are between 10 to 18. And, you discuss with them and they got a different view of the world, the different way of thinking, and then you're not always okay with that, or you're not always sharing the same, but you say, at some point, they will be in charge. So listen what I'm telling you, but then do your way, because you're talking to the next generation, the next consumer generation. So
yeah, what I loved to do and still do, my children are older, is open the wine around the table with them, especially when they're at an age where it's appropriate to serve them, because that's what wine is all about for me, is having those conversations, listening to the children and their viewpoints on things, because we'll all learn.
Exactly.
I'd like to talk about the vineyard a little bit itself. As I mentioned earlier, you have 82 hectares and it's a single block. Some first growths, I think, don't have such a continuous acreage as you do. And does the sheer scale of a single block make your job easier or harder?
No, I think it's easier. It's easier in terms of management, because everything is one plot, so you go from one place to the other. So physically it's easier, but then if you got a trouble with the climate, if anything goes wrong, you're dead. And then inside 82 hectares, we've seen that we got about 70 different plots. So it's not because you got 82 hectares, that's one soil. It's very solid and consistent from one plot to the other, but still, in terms of management, it's easier. But in terms of winemaking and then in terms of risks, it's not easy.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And I guess to describe this to listeners, many chateaus can buy a plot over here and a plot over here. And as long as it's in the same commune, it's perfectly acceptable to put in your wine. And so Gruaud-Larose is very unique in that way. And then in 2022, you received the full organic certification. Tell me about that process a little bit.
The idea, being organic, wasn't the point. Honestly, we did it just to tell people that, okay, we are able to do it. But the main point was to be more linked with our vineyards, with the plant by itself, and trying to work in a different way and trying to think out of the box. And that's a good way to do it because you don't have any backup in terms of treatment and stuff. So it helps us a lot, not being organic, but thinking things out of the box.
And for the long-term stewardship of the land, do you find that it's a better way to treat the land in the long run?
Not so much. Of course, what you're using to protect the vine is safer, but in some years, you need to go in the vineyard with a machine like 2 or 3 times a week. So I'm not convinced that's the best way to do it. There is probably something in between, I would say, regular farming and then organic farming in between. That's something we are looking at because, if you go there 3 times a week, not too sure about it. Huh?
What is a concern?
Then the soil gets very compacted. And then right now, the tractor that we are using, they are using gas, not water.
Yeah, and I know some wineries have moved back to horses. Is that something that you're looking at?
No.
Yeah.
No, being modern and being organic, it wasn't better before. Huh? Sometimes people say, it was better before, and then horses, but at that time, if you have horses, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's a vineyard, but it's not art, it's not painting. It's a company. We need to be efficient. We need to manage the cost of production. So that's more.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And I read that you're moving to a higher proportion of Cabernet Sauvignon in the vineyards.
Yes.
What was the thinking behind that?
We should have done that before. Gruaud-Larose, it's one plot. It's kind of top of a small hill. And what we used to do, like in the 70s, for instance, or before, you've got between the top of the hill and the lower part, you've got about 10 meters. Not that big, but sometimes you've got 1 or 2 degrees difference. So the old guy, the previous owner, what they used to do is they put the Merlot on top and the Cabernet on the bottom part. Because at that time, their goal was to make sure they got wine. Not well ripe, not the quality, but make sure that they got wine. So doing that, when it's a bit cold down on downhill, with the Cabernet, you got still some protection, right? Right now, the ambition is different. We want to do the best wine possible. So you have to change and put the Cabernet on top and the Merlot on the bottom part. We do have a higher percentage of soil and then the top part that can receive Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's a natural thing to go up to 70 to 80% Cabernet Sauvignon because of the soil. That's the only thing. And because of the global warming, it's better to do that.
This will help to prepare you, make it more resilient for global warming as well, these changes?
Yes.
Right.
And then we do have other option, putting some grass between the line and stuff like that. Right now, global warming, when it comes to Cabernet Sauvignon, that's a good thing. That's probably the only good thing for global warming, but that's for Cabernet, that's good.
Why is it good for Cabernet?
Because now we have been making exceptional wine for the last 30 years because the Cabernet, they are well ripe and they are perfect for the actual climate. Half a degree, that makes a big difference.
Right. And I guess this summer's been very hot. Do you have some concerns for the 2026s at this point, or is it too early?
At this point, no. But if it continues for another 2 weeks, we might have some trouble. For the old vines, they go very deep with the roots. So right now it's fine. But if it continue, then the plant will stop grow, they will block, and then the veraison will stop. This might be a problem.
And I know that in Bordeaux, you can't irrigate. You can't bring any water in. For such a hot vintage, would it be helpful if there was an exception?
Sure, but it's not really irrigation.
No.
What we should do is, it's not like you put 10 liters of water every day, all day long. We should be able to do like 4 liters once or twice when it's very hot. You don't need more.
Right.
So it's not irrigation. That's salvation to.
Thank you for the correction. Right, but it's almost like a misting. It's protected when it gets so hot. And so this to me is a tradition that perhaps needs to be changed in Bordeaux.
I'm not the one in charge of that, but I'm sure because of the weather and then because of the this problem might occur. Last one was 2003,
Yes.
when we had this massive heat wave. So if it's once every 20 years, okay, we can handle it. If it's then one every 10 years or every 5 years, I'm sure it will be more and more often. So I'm sure that very soon people will be allowed to not to irrigate, but to save their work.
Yeah, of course. And I think this is one of the main reasons that Lafleur pulled out of the AOC system, because they so firmly believed this is so important for the health of the vine. And these rules were written in a very different period for different reasons, right? So.
And I don't know what they're doing at Lafleur, but I'm sure that they won't put millions of liters of water and change their wine. The wine is exceptional. They don't need that. They just need to protect their what they've been working for ages.
Yes, he actually described, I don't remember the detail, he described how much water, just a little misting, just a little bit, just to protect it in that really hot period along those lines. And it makes sense. It makes total sense. So hopefully one day that'll change. In my career, I've been fortunate to taste many, many older Bordeauxs, including many wines from the 19th century. My two fondest memories of Gruaud-Larose are the 1983, which I served at my wedding in 1989, and this 1961, which was the year I was born. So I was lucky that way, right? And I know Gruaud-Larose has a deep library. Have you tasted many of the older wines at Gruaud-Larose? How far back do you go?
The oldest one I had was 1833. We do taste them from time to time. I love those old wines, not for the taste. I got a very intellectual approach about wine, meaning that you're drinking wine. You're drinking wine because of the taste. You're drinking wine because of the alcohol. You have to be honest. I like to feel the alcohol inside of my body, but also it brings back memory and souvenirs and stuff. And what I like to do is, if you drink those very old wine, you take a book, see what happened at that time, and try to remember those souvenirs. And that's extremely important to me for those old wine, even more than the taste by itself.
Yes, there's such history when you can taste those old wines. It's and I do the same thing. I think about my focus is more in the United States, but who was the president back in the 1920s, or you said the oldest was the 1832. Right, this is just before the Civil War in the United States, and how was the 1832? Was there still fruit? Was it still an enjoyable wine?
No. So it was 1833.
Sorry. Okay.
The thing is, I got 33, 43, all the year in
threes.
Honestly, after such a long time, the difference. I'm sure that 33 and 43 they were not the same at that time. 10 years after the bottling, but because of the age, they tend to be not the same, but the difference is a bit less than probably it used to be. I mean, you have to remember that at that time, the winemaking process was not as technical, and it was more like something that you do because your father did it or your grandfather did it. So you got wine with less alcohol, a bit more of acidity, sometimes a residual sugar in it. So the wines are different, but when you taste them next to each other, you see that there is a kind of lineage between all the bottles. That's quite amazing.
And what I also find amazing is that they're still alive. They still have fruit, right? They're still enjoyable. Sometimes only for 15, 20 minutes, but they're still enjoyable. And to have something that was either during World War II or during the U.S. Civil War, it's truly amazing. Can we talk for a minute about Sarget de Gruaud-Larose, the second wine? And for listeners who don't know, second wines in Bordeaux, well, you have the Grand Vin, the great wine, which is the first wine, Gruaud-Larose, and many, many chateaus now make a second wine as well. And there's different theories for what they do with their second wine and how they do it. But I'd love to hear from Gruaud-Larose how you guys handle the Sarget.
So we do three wines, the Grand Vin, Sarget, and a third wine. The third wine is we don't bottle it. It's a Saint-Julien, but it's bulk wine. So the Sarget, it's coming either from young vines or for some terroir that particular year is not good enough to go into the Grand Vin. Very simple. The Grand Vin is a selection. Sarget is another selection, and then we do a third one.
And that's a very traditional second label. And that makes total sense because it keeps the quality. I suppose it'll keep the quality up of the first wine, right?
Exactly.
And that's the goal of doing that. So that makes total sense.
That's the
along
goal.
Those lines.
Yes. And I tasted it last week, the 2018. And I'm telling you that the Sarget 18 is nicer than some wine from the 70s or the 80s.
I'm not surprised. Tell me if you agree with this statement. In my perception has been that the quality of wine has continued to go up. But where you've really seen it go up, the improvements, is you used to have great years and really challenging years where the wine wasn't as good. But now it's the more challenging years that you've really been able to make better wines, and also then with the second labels. All that quality the consistency in the quality has really gone up. Do you think that's a fair statement?
It is. And there is very simple reason for that. First one is technology and knowledge. We know better what we're doing, and we've got people that are not better than the one we used to have before, but they have more knowledge about what they're doing. And then also the price went up. So we are making more money than we used to do. So for instance, if you take 2013, we usually do 150,000 bottles of Gruaud. In 2013, it was a tough year. Huh? I did only 50,000 bottles because I know that.
Wow. So I'm sorry, you went from 150 to 50. What was the number again?
Yes, that's it. That's 150, and then we reduce it to 50. Because the way we see also our wine is people now, if you buy a bottle of Gruaud-Larose, it's quite expensive. That's why I'm talking about price. It costs you, I don't know, $100 maybe in the US. And people, they buy it because they trust the brand. It's not a good, it's not a good word, but it's a brand.
No, of course it is.
They trust the brand. And if in 26, like today, you open a bottle of 2013, you won't remember that it was a tough year, and then you pay the price and you say, "Oh, it's not. I don't understand why it's not good as it used to be at Gruaud-Larose." So because of that, we need to keep a certain level. We know better what we're doing, but then we do less wine. That's the thing also. You do more selection, and even in 13, some people didn't make wine in 13. Honestly, out of 82 hectares, producing 50,000 bottles of good wine. I won't say it's exceptional wine, but they are really good wines. It's such a small portion. Even in tough years, you should be able to do 50,000 bottles.
Right. And that's protecting the brand. So people have confidence that any vintage of Gruaud-Larose they buy, it's going to be, now a great vintage might be better, but it's going to be still very good in a vintage like 13. Right.
For the great vintage, like 82, 89, 90, 10, 9, 10, 22, 25. There's nothing you can do. It's not in your hand. That's Mother Nature, and that's it. But on the other vintage, you can manage the quality by producing less Grand Vin and working in a different way.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. Makes total sense, and it's smart. I think it's a smart thing that Bordeaux has done. Let's zoom out a little bit, not talk about Gruaud-Larose, but Saint-Julien as a commune, and just to describe it to people, I'll put a map up of the area when the show produces. But in case you're just listening, right, you have the left bank and the right bank of Bordeaux, and you have the Gironde River in between. And on the left bank, you have Saint-Julien, you have Pauillac, you have Margaux, and Saint-Estèphe. But in my perspective, Pauillac and Margaux get a lot of headlines, and Saint-Julien, while it's making great wine, seems to be a quieter commune. Do you agree with that perception?
For sure. And there is multiple reasons for that. First, it's a small appellation. There is no first classified growth. I think we should have some, but there is not. And most of the chateau belongs to family. It's a very quiet. And then the wine we're doing, they're extremely well balanced. They are very classical wine. That's the wine I love. But you know, they are not fancy. People are just normal people doing exceptional wine. And that's also, you know, right now you need to make some noise. You need to be a bit, show off and stuff like that. We don't have people like that in Saint-Julien, and wine as well.
Yeah, I that's the character, that's the feeling I get from Saint-Julien. I think that's a good description. But still, people should pay attention to Saint-Julien, in my humble opinion, because there's some really wonderful wines there. You mentioned the 1855 classification, right? So let's just discuss that for a minute. This was done by Napoleon III 170 years ago. And for people who don't know, it's a classification where you have 5 first gross, I think it's 14 second gross, and it goes on from there. I think there's like 60 wines that are either first, second, third, fourth, or fifth gross, all in the Médoc region and the Graves region. That was done, as I said, 170 years ago, and there's only been one change in that 170 years, where Mouton went from a second growth to a first growth. Is this a system that's still meaningful today, or is it more of a marketing to you? Is it more of something from marketing?
No, I think it's I wouldn't say it's 100% accurate, but there is still a strong link between the classification and the quality of the wine. Of course, you got some chateaux that are not qualified that would deserve to be there. And then sometimes people say it's a fourth, but it should be a second or a second, because at that time the estate wasn't in good condition and stuff like that. But overall, to me, it is very relevant.
Then the question is it more of a chicken or an egg? Are second gross because the terroir is better, or is because people pay attention, they're willing to pay more money because it's a second growth, so you can invest more money into the chateau and make a better quality wine?
No, that's mainly because of the terroir. When the classification has been done, it has been done over prices, but also brand recognition at that time from 1800 to 1855. So it wasn't just a single shot at one time. It was more like an history related. So it has mainly to do with the terroir. Of course, you can buy some other piece of land and then change your terroir. Some chateaux did. At Gruaud, from the 1855, nothing has changed. That's the exact same. That's what we call an historical chateau, meaning at that time when we've been classified, it was 82 hectares. We are still producing on the same 82 hectares.
Wow, I think that's pretty unique. My guess is that most chateaux have changed, where they're producing the wine from since that time.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. If the land doesn't change, then you got a very strong link between every vintage. You can feel it, you can smell it, taste it. Some chateaux expand for economical reason. The wine is still good, even sometimes better, but then you don't have that link over the 150 years. But in terms of quality, that's really up to the chateau to maintain their quality. You got some first classified growth that bought some land, and the same for second one in Margaux or in Pauillac. And wines are exceptional, sometimes better than they used to be. So that's not a problem.
Yeah, no, I wasn't saying it was necessarily good or bad. It's again, something very unique about Gruaud-Larose.
Yes,
along those lines. No, totally agree. And you talked about En Primeur before for a minute. And again, let me just explain to people, En Primeur is a system where, so we talked about the 2025 vintage, very exciting vintage for you. Just this spring, the chateaus offered it to negociants. Negociants offered it to the retailers. And in the past, when I started in the business in 1983, most chateaus would sell 80, 90% of their wine. The understanding at the time was that the prices would go up, and people were willing to pay for this, keep the cash flowing for many reasons, 2 years before the wine was delivered, because of the confidence that the wines would go up in value. There's been certainly more grumblings that isn't so much the deal these days, and I've certainly seen it at Zacky's, that we're still selling En Primeur, but much less than we used to sell. What is your feeling on that, and how well is En Primeur working in your perspective these days?
You describe it the right way, and you explain exactly why this was working. Because people, they buy En Primeur, they give you the money, and then they got an advantage. Either they secure the wine to make sure that they got some wine, and that's one thing, and then they got it for a better price. If one of those two reasons is not working, and there is no point buying on Primeur. You need to have a financial advantage or a sourcing advantage.
Do you still recommend buying on Primeur? Do you think it still makes sense to buy Gruaud-Larose on Primeur?
It is. It is. I mean, we did have a good on Primeur campaign this year because the price was good and because it was a low yield 2025. So I would say yes. But that's a very, in the past, it was more like a general thing. Everybody was buying on Primeur and a lot of chateaux were selling on Primeur. Some still doing well on Primeur, but the amount of chateau is reducing. It might, I don't know, it might reduce to not like 300 or 500 chateaux on Primeur, maybe 100 chateaux. The more attractive one, or the one that really has a good price point.
Yeah, because otherwise you can buy it 2 to 5 years later, cheaper sometimes, and there has been vintages where that's happened. And that's the challenge for Bordeaux, to make sure that value proposition stays a value proposition that makes sense. I also continue to hear rumors that there's still a lot of unsold wine in Bordeaux, either at the chateaus or at the negociants. What are you seeing?
There is. Hopefully, we can store it and our wines need to age. Is it because of the global economy, or is it because it's more like a trend that people drink less Bordeaux, or I don't know. But yes, it's a problem right now.
Yeah. And are you concerned?
Of course. We are facing some issues because if it's just because of the global economy, after some years people will buy and then we will release our wine. If it's consumption and a bit deeper with the new generation and stuff like that, we need to address it, or we need to find solution to have younger people drink wine and drink Bordeaux.
Yeah, and that's certainly a challenge. There's certainly less consumption going on. Another possibility is that people they don't want to buy it when it's young. They'd rather wait for when the wine is ready, and then Bordeaux has to figure out how to manage that and sell less wine on Primeur and sell more on the bottle side of things.
And then it will be a cash flow issue. And we've seen that in France. A lot of friends, they live in Paris. My grandparents, they used to buy wine and then they store it. If you live in Paris now, you have no cellar. So my friends, they are not into the wine business, but because of me and they like wine and stuff, when I go to their place, they don't take wine from their cellar. They go to the wine shop the day before, they buy a bottle, and then they open it. And of course, and I've seen that several times. They want to be nice with me. They buy a bottle of Gruaud-Larose. We go for dinner.
Because you never drink Gruaud-Larose, right? So
yeah, I went there, and then it's like a 2023. And I said, but it's too young. I mean, should wait for another. So yeah, but that was at the wine shop. And that's the thing. In that case, the chateau will have to store the wine and then release it when it's ready to drink after 10 years.
Yeah, and I would imagine from a cash flow perspective, that can work if you're selling enough older bottles. There's this transitional period because you're used to selling 80%, I don't know, when it's first released. It's the model that Chateau Latour started 15 years ago.
They're going to have a switch in terms of model, meaning selling 100% on Primeur or 80% and 20 old vintage, to maybe the opposite, saying, right, I'm selling 20% on Primeur with a good price advantage, and then selling wine that are ready to drink. But this, of course, you got 80% of your total production that you need to finance.
Yeah, need to finance and store.
Yeah, for about 10 years.
Yeah, and so, that's complicated. Absolutely. Okay, so we'll talk in 10 years from now and see how that all plays out. As you think of the next decade at Gruaud-Larose and the investments that you're making, what are you building towards? What are you uncorking next? And what do you see changing in the estate?
I would say it's not necessarily on the estate by itself, but it's more the way you promote the wine. I think, honestly, I might be wrong, but I think it's not an issue of the wine by itself, the way we make it. I think it has changed already in terms of taste, in terms of wood, in terms of intensity and everything. When I drink wine with friends that are younger than me, they like the taste and everything. The main thing is sometimes they're a bit afraid of drinking those kind of wine. And to me, that's the main thing. We should find another way to promote our wines.
Some of that, I imagine, is at the estate itself, is, encouraging visitors, maybe encouraging different experiences at the estate. Is that stuff that you're looking at and considering?
We do have a wine shop. We do tours and stuff. And we were one of the first to open that tour. We built a tower, like a stainless steel tower.
Yes, I've seen it. Yeah, I've been there.
Seen it. And of course, we need to be a bit more open to the world and tell people, come to the estate. You're from the US, that's the model we should target. We won't sell all our production to the estate. It's not the way we do it. But still, people, they should come, visit, see that it's not like a temple where you can't do anything. That's come, enjoy the place, have a glass of wine, and if it's very hot, have a beer as well, and that's fine.
Yeah. I actually remember in one of my first visits in Bordeaux in probably 1985, I was having lunch with Alexis Lachine, who owned Prieur Lachine at the time, and he was talking about probably 8 years ago, he had opened up Prieur Lachine to visitors. And Bordeaux was aghast because nobody was doing it at that time. It's been a long time coming, but I think that is an important part of the next step. And maybe doing events and other things like that. I know you did a big tasting in New York, tasting 30 vintages of Gruaud-Larose. Are you planning to do other events like that as well?
Yes, and in a way that is an easygoing way. To me, that's the main thing. People shouldn't be afraid of opening a bottle and drinking Bordeaux wine. They are exceptional wine. I'm sure of that they are exceptional wine, but that's one of my big fights. Saying you can drink Gruaud-Larose with whatever you want.
Easier way. What does that mean to you?
I would say less formal way. The way people are right now. The young generation. If you come to France, or my parents or my grandparents, they have dinner. They have these big tables. You sit there for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. My father-in-law is still doing that. Now, if you've got friends coming at your place, you're doing a barbecue, and you go to your not the dining room, you eat on a small table in the garden, open a bottle. It's less formal, and that's the way I like to drink wine, enjoy it, or in the kitchen. Your friend is cooking, you're around him, open a bottle, and we should have done that earlier in Bordeaux.
I totally agree. That's what wine is about. Wine is about drinking and having wonderful conversations and wonderful times with family and friends.
Yes,
right.
And sharing it, and don't spend too much time thinking about it. It's just a bottle of wine.
Right. Exactly. So this perfect tie-in to where we're heading. I end every conversation the same way with the final 3 questions, and I hope you're okay if I do that with you as well. And so the first question is, please share an early memory that drew you into wine.
As I told you before, my grandparents, they used to own a Nicolas shop.
Oh.
It was a wine shop in Le Havre, in Normandy. And I remember when I was young, it was they had sold the wine shop before I was born. But I remember going to like an old room at my grandmother's place, and we got this sign saying Nicolas, and she had also wine list with my name on it. And that was my main thing. I said, you got a shop named by me. Cool.
Oh, that's great. And the Nicolas, I have the old Nicolas catalogs, the Art Deco catalogs. They're beautiful. Have as well. Yeah, they're beautiful. Very nice. Beautiful.
Yes.
And so well done. And such a great history. That's great. That's a very different memory than I heard, but I love that one. Second question is, please share a breakout moment at Gruaud-Larose where you knew you had done something special.
Honestly, you need to be quite humble when it comes to wine, and I haven't done anything special. We've been doing great wine for 300 years before me. People will do. So what I do is I try to take the best from the past, improve it step by step, but it will be extremely arrogant to say that I've done something that hasn't been done before. I'm just trying to enhance or do everything in a different way, in a better way, if possible. And that's fine for me. That's fine.
That's a very Saint-Julien answer. I like that. And finally, please share one piece of advice to someone who feels that they don't belong in wine.
Honestly, except if you're the vine by itself, There is not a one right answer. You know, most of the time when I do tasting and stuff, people say, what do you think? And I say, it's not what I think. If I drink wine and then I remember or I smell it, it's an old wine, I remember my grandmother's house, she had a cupboard and open it and it's about the same smell. Your grandmother one won't smell the same. So that's the easy thing with wine. There's so many answers, you can't be wrong. Whatever you do, whatever you say, you can't be wrong. So just be yourself and just enjoy the wine. Don't expect too much of it because it's just wine. Just make sure that when you drink wine, your feelings are okay. Can be sad or not, or you can be happy. But just connect with your feeling, and then it will be nice. It will be fine.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I totally agree. Wine is every experience is unique, and there's no wrong answer.
No.
Right? Yeah, totally agree. Nicolas, this has been a real pleasure, right? Nearly 300 years of history, and I get the feeling that the most exciting chapters of Gruaud-Larose are still ahead. So thank you so much for joining me on Uncorking What's Next. And I look forward to seeing you either here in New York or in Bordeaux. So thank you. Thank you. Hi, Jeff Zachariah. I'm the producer of this podcast. I want to thank everyone who's helped make it possible. My good friend, Christian Kuipers, for the artwork. My daughter by choice, Hannah Tobias, for the music. Soraya Perry for the editing. Amelia Lankus for the social media and communications. And of course, my wife, Frederique, for her constant and continued support. Thank you.